Once upon a time, there lived a farmer who had a little land. His name was Tuan, and he was a very kind and good natured person. He lived in a hut on his land with his wife and children and earned by selling whatever crop he could produce on his small land. Tuan loved to help others whenever someone fell ill or needed something badly. Tuan was there to help that person if someone died in the village. Tuan assisted the family members of the deceased person in whichever way he could. If anyone fell ill at night, Tuan was right beside the village doctor to help him prepare the medicines and tend to the sick. There seemed to be none who hated this man. He appeared to be loved by one and all. But there was one person who hated Tuan with all his heart. He was Juan, a neighbor of Tuan, who lived in the land next to him. A lazy person by nature, Juan hardly put in as much effort to cultivate his land as Tuan did to produce crops in his own. So when the harvest season arrived every year, Juan found that he had very few crops to sell. Tuan, on the other hand, earned a handsome profit through the selling of his produces. One year, Juan could no longer contain his jealousy. Just days before Tuan was to reap his harvest, Juan set fire to his crops at night. Tuan was asleep at this time, and it was only the alertness of one of his other neighbors that saved much of his crop from being perished in the deadly flames of the fire that Juan had lighted. When the flames were doused, Tuan saw which direction the fire had started from. Juan's animosity towards him was unknown to Tuan, but he let the matter rest and decided to take action only if he saw Juan repeating his dastardly act once again. That year, Tuan managed to sell the rest of his crop at a good price, but he could not make much profit for a good part of his produces had been burned. He had a heavy heart, but he did not like to tell anyone about it. Only days later, Tuan was awakened by the sound of lamentations. He went out to find a crowd beside Juan's hut. He rushed to find that Juan's son had fallen ill. He found that the village doctor was unable to provide a cure to his illness. Tuan knew what he had to do. He untied his own horse and rode it. Then he rushed to the town that was 10 miles away and fetched a more experienced doctor who lived there. This doctor was able to guess the disease correctly and provided an exact cure for it. Within hours, the boy was found to sleep soundly, and Tuan went with the doctor to take him back to the town. A day later, Juan went to Tuan's hut and began to weep bitterly. He confessed his sins but was surprised when Tuan told him that he knew about it. You knew that I had set fire to your crops and still you fetched the doctor for my son, asked the astonished Juan. Tuan nodded and said, I did what I knew was right. Could I do wrong just because you had done so? Juan stood up and embarrassed Tuan. Both men were in tears and so were the other who stood by them. That day Juan changed himself within a year. He could produce much crop in his land through his hard work. When the other asked him how he had changed so much, he only replied, it was the goodness and love of Tuan that transformed him.